All right, Brandon, welcome to the pod.
Thanks for having me.
We have our starting first question tradition on the pod, as you just got to witness. So, my question to you is, in the clearest sense, if you had one sentence and you're in an Uber, and the Uber driver asks you, "Who are you and what you do?" You'd only have one sentence to answer that question.
Okay.
What's the sentence?
I would just tell them that I'm a creative photographer and videographer. Keep it short and simple.
Okay.
Simple as that. And if they ask any more details, then I usually say I range from doing weddings to brand work and so on.
Was weddings the start, or?
Honestly, yeah, I started doing weddings for a while. I think I have about maybe 20 behind my belt now. And it's usually the best way to get paid.
Yeah, facts. So is that then, was that always your stepping stone idea, or was that simply the paycheck at the beginning?
Honestly, no, as a way to get paid, I always thought that was a great idea, but it was never something that I was truly passionate about. What I really got my foot in the door was probably, I love the outdoors. I love just taking raw moments of just anything, just a lot of candid. That's pretty much what got me into the door. And I love just playing around, getting creative. I don't really have a straight direction when it comes to what I want to shoot, and I don't really like too much posed stuff. So I just, yeah, some weddings are good, but majority of the time, it's mostly all candid for the most part. And then you obviously have that period where you get all the families together and then do the pose shots and everything.
Yeah. I played support on one wedding, and I remember just because when I was first figuring out what to do, and I just remembered the construction of the bride and groom, new family, photo next, and it was next, and they were just out there for an hour, and I'm just I don't know if I can do this.
It's kind of boring when you get okay, next, and you're getting all these different people, and you still have usually the same background, you're just switching out people, and that's it. I'm just it's kind of the same thing over and over again. It's kind of it's whatever though, right? They like it because they get their photos with all their family, but for me, I'm just this is boring.
Yeah, yeah.
But I like capturing the raw moments, like I said, and everyone when they're drinking and everything like that. You get especially when you're doing videography, you get all those cool moments, and you just all the funny moments,
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what I live for, is the funny parts and just all that.
Do you ever offer a B cut to a wedding film, where it's you have the A cut that's the script, and then
usually it depends on the people, if they're just oh yeah, we want a professional photographer and everything like that, or videographer. Normally I just give them the A cut.
Okay.
And then, but if it's for somebody I know, I've done weddings for a lot of friends and everything, I'll literally put the A cut and the B cut all together, and they usually love it. So I usually, for friends and everything like that, I'll do that. But for somebody that I don't know and they just hire me and they want professional, then I'll just give them the A cut.
Yeah, you got to read the room, right?
Yeah.
It's you can...
unless they ask, if they're hey, did you get any of this? I'm yeah, here you go, throw that in there for you. So,
nice.
Yeah.
So then, if you said you did 20 weddings, I'm guessing that's 3 summers, or how many? Or how I guess how busy of a wedding season are you?
Honestly, it was okay, because then we had that period of COVID and everything too. So no weddings. I had weddings booked, but they just didn't happen, right? No, so probably last 4 or 5 years maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that then you started this 5 years ago, or were you someone that was always?
I started getting into photography and videography professionally probably in 2016 is when I started okay, I want to start doing this a little bit as a business, hobby, business kind of thing. But then honestly, probably in the last 2 years is when I'm okay, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm aiming for. This is my end goal. Yeah, I don't want to work a 9 to 5 anymore, that kind of thing. So
you were working a 9 to 5 when you started, or?
Yeah, I was. Still am, sadly.
Okay.
But I don't know. It's a rough job too. It's nothing I like. It's factory work. So
yeah.
Building trucks at General Motors.
No way.
Yeah.
My grandfather used to do that. It was a mechanic at GM out in Oshawa.
it was probably good back then, but now it's just it's terrible.
Different, eh?
Yeah, it's probably one of the worst jobs.
Oh no.
Yeah.
So that's interesting because you defaulted into the Uber question of the side hustle in
Yeah.
a way.
Yeah. It for me, like right now, it's more like working 2 full-time jobs. Like
I can
put
imagine,
in,
right?
yeah, I put in as much work as I do like 40 hours a week at my main job, and then 40 hours a week roughly for like my photography and
Wild.
everything. So it's pretty busy. Like literally, like I probably only slept like 4 hours before I came here, and then sat in traffic for like 2 hours.
Oh no. Well, I'm glad we got the donuts and the coffee.
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah, the coffee has definitely helped.
so then I guess the craziest thing for me with the balancing the extra 40 hours in with the main 40 hours in a way is the type of work you're able to get with that. Because I found that it actually was very restrictive a lot of the times at what clients you were, or what even like creative niche you were able to get into. Is that maybe, so obviously like the weddings are, once you figure it out, you can get a good sort of system running with that. But have you found that similar challenge of like what work you might be trying to get into is a little bit limited with, oh, I can only be there on a Saturday to shoot your brand video for you? Like, how's that?
It's kind of funny because like that's how it like started, is like, oh, I can only do weekends for like whatever, right? For any kind of shoot. But now it's like I don't really care too much about my job, my main job. So I'll just like, either if it's a good paying job, like photography job, then I'm gonna try to book the day off. And if I don't get it off, I'm like, okay, I'm calling in. Like it's just simple as that. Like hopefully none of my management sees this podcast because then they're gonna be like, yeah, you're out of here.
Oh no.
No, they wouldn't do that. But no, like I've been kind of leaning more towards the full-time content creator over my full-time job right now. And yeah, I don't want to do anything else other than that. So
cool.
Yeah.
What's the so then it's interesting because I think I view, so my uncle's a mechanic and my grandfather was a mechanic. My other uncle was an engineer, and everybody kind of, so both sides of the family uncles basically, and everybody lived in car kind of culture at one point. And my one uncle, who is a mechanic, he works on classic cars in his garage and does the whole thing. But then he goes, as his day job, works on buses for the TTC, and it's interesting because I hadn't made this connection, but it is creative in a sense, right? Like what you can actually do to a car.
Yeah.
When you were initially deciding on your first kind of career path, because I'm guessing you went to trade school before. No? Oh, no way.
No.
So how'd you get into cars then? What's the...
Honestly, it was like right after high school. Like right after I got to high school, I just got right into GM.
Okay.
And then, yeah, I just pretty much never let go of like working there, which kind of sucks. Like there was one period where I actually quit there, and that was just before they like closed down for like 2 years, I think it was. And I started working out in Vaughan for an interior design company. I was doing their creative content, and I was also doing some of their like marketing. That was a good job. I liked it, paid well, but it was just too far of a commute for me because I'm living in Newcastle. So I was roughly sitting in traffic for about like 3 hours if I were to take the 401 going home after work. And I was just like, I can't do this anymore, like every single day. So quit that. Then I found my way back to General Motors again, and I'm just going in there. I'm like, oh, why am I doing this? Like, I hate it here. I don't like, it's the money. Like, it pays the bills, puts food on the table, that's the only way I like found my way back into it. And like, it's weird. Yeah, I never thought I would be fitting into the automotive industry. But I just did. And then it's actually funny to think about it, because when I actually first started doing photography, it was like automotive. Like I'd go to car meets and everything, take photos of like people's cars. And then actually that's actually how it really started, honestly, when I started getting like paid shoots and stuff. So that's what it really came down to, I think. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Was it with car collectors then? Like you'd find the guy with the...
Not really. I would literally just go to, I would see like posts on like Facebook or Instagram. They're like car meet here in like Whitby or in Toronto or wherever, right? And then I would just show up and then start taking pictures. And people were like, "Oh, can I see the picture?" And then I'd show them, and then they'd be like, "Oh, do you have a business card?" And I'm like, "Yeah, here you go." And then people would reach out to me doing automotive photography, and it was just like all wide range of people, like people who just have like, there's car collectors, but like most of the people is just like, I have the one car and then I put all my savings into this car, and like, you know, just a whole wide variety of people. And it was pretty cool to like, you know, meet people that are passionate about their vehicles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The I find automotive's kind of like this ridiculous niche, especially for us in Toronto, because our car culture stops 8 months of the year most of the time, and it's like right now I would say like now is when it starts, and then it just June is like moonshot, July it's there, and then August it just tapers again.
Yeah.
So did you find then, like when you were first starting out, did you think you were going to be that kind of automotive, I'm going to work for Shooting Ford one day, or like I'm going to be the guy that takes the...
Surprisingly not.
Okay.
It wasn't something I was truly passionate about. Like I loved, you know, taking the photos, but it wasn't, cars are basically stationary for the most part, unless like, you know, when you're shooting them. And I started doing like roller shots. I wasn't big on it, honestly. I liked working more with like portrait photography for the most part. So I kind of eventually steered away from the automotive. I started getting into portraits. I don't know. It was just, I don't know. I really loved doing the portraits because like, you know, you can set people up in different environments, and like winter, you know, with like cars, people don't really like bring out their cars in the winter. So like I had to find like other solutions, right? No, that's pretty much it for that.
Well, yeah. I remember like when I was first starting, one of the first pitches that I was doing was this local Lexus dealership nearby me, and I like bought an Aaron Brimhall course, and I was like, I'm gonna learn what a 3/4 is and a whatever, like all the angles that you take in the front grille. And the one thing that stuck out through that whole like workshop was that cars are actually a lot harder to shoot than people think because they're stationary.
Yeah.
And it's like you have to, it's like an art in a way to like position the car, and then because you're moving around as you've like made the scene. And I never fully appreciated that. Whereas like when you're with the model, like you're interacting a lot more, you're bringing it out.
Yeah.
Do you find that the interaction part then like rewarding with what you do? Is that like where your creativity really comes out, or?
For that question, do you mean like in the automotive sense, or like?
No, like with the model. Like now since like you move away, yeah.
Yeah. To be completely honest, like I said, I don't really like pose shots. I like more of the candid, so that's why I started getting into like travel photography and videography, and like, you know, getting people to fully express themselves within the environment. Like I'm not like the type of well, sometimes I do this. I'm like, yo, go stand on that like cliff, it'll look cool for a photo and like pose or something. But now it's just like, okay, I see that cliff, I'm just hoping that person starts to walk over there and like kind of like, oh wow, this is like amazing, and then I'm gonna like capture it without them fully knowing, right? Usually those shots are like the pure moments, and like that's what people like to see. They like to see the raw, pure moments, and they don't like, nobody really likes too many pose shots. They're like, okay, yeah, that's a cool shot, they're posing, that's like cool, but you don't really like feel anything with the shot, you know, where you want to feel like the emotion. There was this one company that hired me, Revived Outdoors, and this is how I truly got inspired with my passion. Is a guy named Tristan Ham. He messaged me on Instagram. This is when I just got my Sony a7 III. Still learning how to use it. Yeah, he messaged me. It's so random. Like I thought it was a scam at first, and then he's like, hey, like, do you want to come to Hawaii and like take photos and videos for my like travel agency company? It's basically an adventure company. So he grabs a whole bunch of like people from different places around the world to takes them on these like retreats, I guess you would say, call them. But yeah, it's basically conquering your fears and like exploring the outdoors and just like living your best life basically. So I was just like, yeah, like sounds cool, but I was like kind of on the fence because I'm like, this is like too good to be true. Like this is what I wanted, and like it's always been my dream to go to Hawaii. So I'm just like, how is this all happening like all in like one package here? I'm like, it seems kind of sketchy. So then he ended up getting on a video call with me, and he was like on his way to Alaska. He was like about to get on the plane, and he's like explaining everything to me. He's like, I'll explain everything else like once I get back from Alaska. I was like, okay, cool. I had a week and a half to decide and make my decision. The thing is like I had to pay for my flight and like a little bit of my accommodation, but like, and then he paid me too, and he covered like most of my stuff. So it was kind of like a little bit of an investment on my end where I wasn't getting too much in return other than like the content that I was like taking. Yeah, so I ended up pulling the trigger on it, flew to Hawaii by myself. This is, oh yeah, not to mention, this is like the second time I've ever been on a plane.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I landed there, picked me up from the airport, and it was just the craziest moment of my life. And like, we did like the most insane shit that I never would have imagined. Like I went rock climbing on like, never been rock climbing before. He's like, yeah, we're going rock climbing in like these like 90 kilometer hour winds. Like it was crazy on the like great Makapu lighthouse. If you ever heard of that, it's you know that lighthouse in what is it, 51st Dates with Adam Sandler?
Yeah.
You know when they're like kissing at the lighthouse? So right there, that's where we did our rock climbing.
Oh my God.
And it was like, I'm like, oh, this is cool. Like Adam Sandler was here. Like, yeah. So we did like just stuff that I never would have imagined. And then we went to Sandy Beach. As soon as I got off the plane, went to Sandy Beach. These waves are like absolutely massive. Like I'm like looking up at them. I'm like, oh God. Like he's like, okay, we're going in the water. I'm like, I've never been in the ocean before. Please don't do this to me. He's like, okay. So when we're gonna run at it, and when you see the wave, I'm gonna tell you, dive down, and you want your like belly to almost brush like the sand underneath, because if not, you're gonna get taken away. And I was like, okay. I have no idea what I'm getting myself into. So I ended up going out there, and he's like, wait, dive now, dive. And I dove, but I didn't go down deep enough, and I got like swept away, and like it hurt. And then as soon as I like resurface, he's like, okay, here comes the next one, dive. And I'm like, ah. So I panicked, I dived, and I actually made it to the other end. And he's like, yeah, you did it, congratulations. And I'm like, thanks. And I'm like, my heart's like pounding. And then he's like, by the way, I forgot to tell you, this beach holds a world record for most broken necks. And I'm like, you tell me that now? Like, it was just a crazy experience. And like, to go on to like the whole photography side of this is like, I got flown out there to have like the time of my life, shoot like all these other people, like people from like Germany came, people from like the States, and like it was just cool to like capture all the raw, pure moments of like everyone just, you know, conquering their fears. Like we're on like these crazy like cliff sides where like one slip and you'll fall to your death. Like it was like one of those, I think that was the most establishing moment where I'm just like, this is what I want to do with my life. I want to create content. I want to travel and like experience different things and like conquer my fears. And I think that's really what opened the door with my mindset in the creative industry.
So if you realize this through the trip, what was the thought that went through your head to say yes to this? Because if I got a call like before the experience, right? Like if I got a call from a guy and he's about to hop on a plane to Alaska and he's telling me to come to Hawaii, and it's rushed and he's like in the airport running to the plane, I'd be like, there's no way. I'm like, how? And then he's like, you just meet this guy in person. You're on surf level waves, like, and you're just like, yeah, broken neck, man. Like, what's it like? So clearly you had this.
It was like the craziest thing ever. I was just like, it was really a gamble. I think that's what was going through my head. I was like, all right, I'm gonna give this guy my money, and it's gonna be like a gamble. If I lose this money, then that's kind of like, okay, whatever. Like you just gotta move on, forget about it, right? So I'm like, okay, yeah. He was gonna take the money and then get my plane ticket and all this. Like he was organizing everything, right? So, Um, yeah, I mean, like it was kind of nerve wracking because it was quite a bit of money too. Um, but I'm just like, you know what? You gotta take the experiences over, like, you know, money will always return, right? So I just like pulled the trigger and I was like, I'm gonna do this because like Hawaii's my dream, and like why not, right? And I didn't really have any friends at the time that could afford to like travel, so I was like, the only time I'm gonna do this is by myself, and like might as well do it, right? So
That's interesting. So it wasn't even just like, oh, I need to like push myself now, or you were in a bit of a lull. It was like a
yeah, I was pretty timid then, honestly. Like I'm more like outgoing now, where like I'll actually do something like that by myself, completely by myself. Like I'll get on a plane, buy a plane ticket, and like, you know, go anywhere.
just for the experience.
Yeah, just to experience it. Like I'm gonna be doing that this summer. I'm not going that far. I'm just gonna go to Vancouver, but like flying there by myself, like
Cool.
and then but yeah, that's like at that moment I was just like, if I can travel by myself and like not really have to worry, like I'm going somewhere fairly safe, so like it's not like too much of a worry. I'm like, if I can do that, like I can do just about anything. So, um, yeah,
Wild.
yeah.
Is it when you go, do you intend on, because there's this group of creators that like travel solo because of the benefits of traveling solo, and you could go through this whole thing of like the pause, be with yourself, and like introspection, or there's another group that's like, let's just like pattern interrupt, explore, meet people, like go, like what's the goal with the experience?
Honestly, okay, like to get out of the way, like I honestly love traveling with people more than by myself. Like it's cool to go by myself and like meet people, because you know you have a better way to make connections. With when you're with your friends, you kind of sometimes just stick together, and then sometimes you'll like meet people and everything. But I like traveling as a group for the most part. Like I like traveling with my buddy Dan. I like traveling with Joey. Like those two people are like the greatest to like travel with, because like we just have a fun time. We're just fucking around like half of the time, and like, you know, we're just having a really good time. And then we're like capturing like all the raw moments. Like just like I said, I love doing that. Like I'm working on a vlog right now for our Alberta trip, and like half of the time I'm like editing this, I'm like laughing so hard because I'm just like, oh, these are like such good like memories. Like one of them was we were at Vermilion Lakes, um near in Banff, and we're trying to get this one shot of like Daniel standing by Rundle Mountain, and we have the whole lake to ourselves. It's like completely frozen. We're standing on it, and then this family came out of like nowhere, and they're like throwing snowballs at each other, and like just like stupid little raw moments like that is just kind of funny because like they had this whole lake to themselves. Like everyone's allowed to go there. Like, or it's not like we're like this is our spot. We're photographers, so you can't have this spot or anything. Um, no, it's just funny because, and then we're like, okay, Dan, move over this way. We'll move over this way. And like they deliberately like start walking to our shot, and I'm like watching like the behind the scenes video of it like from my computer, and I'm just like laughing. I'm like, it's just a funny like you'll see it. Like I'll post it. It's a really funny like moment. So like just capturing like the funny times is like one of my favorite things. So
Nice. It's yeah. So it's really then about the um. Is it about the reaction then at the end? For okay.
yeah, it's more like living in the moment, like because I've been having like a really hard time like kind of being in the moment, and like, you know, just enjoying my surroundings, because for the past like few years I was always like the type of person is like, okay, I'm gonna take a shot of this, I'm gonna take a shot of that, like where I'm not really actually like getting to see it with like my own eyes. um that's the one problem I've always had, is like you gotta like breathe and slow down and like take it in, take in the views. um yeah, because when you're like behind your lens all the time, you don't really have time to like concentrate on like, you know, the important things in life. um yeah, I just
Was there a moment that made you realize that, or was it kind of just been over
yeah,
time?
actually it was a lot of my friends have told me that.
Okay.
They're like, okay, put down the camera and just breathe for a second. Like, because I'm always so like gung-ho with my camera, I'm like, I'm gonna take a video of everything, like They're like, okay, now put down your camera and take a moment, take all this in. And like sometimes I'll even do that and I'll be like, okay, I'll be trying, I'll be like looking around, I'll be like, and then my heart will start racing. I'm like, I should be documenting this like on my camera. Like, yeah, it's still something I struggle with like today. Like, but I've been trying to get a little bit better on it. I know a lot of people, they're like, oh, I can take this in like no problem. I just can't. I feel like I can't really slow down sometimes.
Are you always thinking about like the future?
Yeah, yeah, quite a bit. I have like this sense of direction where I don't know, like I really want to do content creation like full time. Like that's my main goal. I don't want to do anything else. That's as long as I have that locked up in my head, I know it will happen because I'm truly passionate about it. And the crazy thing is a lot of people probably get to experience this same scenario, but like my dad on one side, he doesn't like totally agree with it because he's like, get into trades, like, you know, be a plumber, be an electrician, all this stuff, like where it's like I feel like a lot of people can like relate with that. You know, your parents are always like, get a good job. Like, I don't think he truly realizes he knows I'm good at like what I do, but I don't think he truly realizes like the potential behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My dad is also, you know, blue chip,
Yeah.
Fortune 500, 35-year, you know,
Yeah.
doing that. And it's not, it took him, when I first started looking at this, like, you know, I like when I started the street photography thing while I was doing a master's degree in the Netherlands, I bought a camera to like document my travel basically with my friends.
Uh-huh.
And I would do these street photos on the cities we visited and start posting on Instagram. And in the beginning, it was like, well, that's cute. It was like, why are you doing that? And I like came up with this concocted story of like, oh, well, I'm posting on Instagram because I need to learn marketing to get my next brand management job, right? Like that was the whole thing. And it then turned into 1,000 followers and like 5,000 followers. And like, obviously for us, that's not why we go out and take pictures, but to people outside looking in, it's proof of concept.
Yep.
And, you know, then all of a sudden family friends were asking like, oh, like, who are these people? How does Brock know 5,000 people? And then my dad started to like wrap his head around like, he doesn't. So like, how's this making sense? And it took like, I'm going to say 1.5 years before both my parents were kind of just like, this is real. Like, this isn't like you just kind of, you see Emily in Paris on Netflix and everybody's like, oh, like what are you doing on social media? Like, and it's no, you know, there's the side of it that is like marketed as this lifestyle. And there's the other side of it that's almost as a way to share and be more purposeful in what you're using it for. And I think that's where the interesting part about being a content creator right now is, because a content creator, or for just to classify it, maybe like the photographer, filmmaker sort of persona on a social media platform, those are professions. And you actually don't need social media to be either of them. And right. And so the funny thing is now to advertise, right? It's pitched as the marketing move for your business, is you got to post on social media to get clients and that kind of thing. And it becomes a little bit more real to everybody looking outside in, is like, I'm a wedding photographer, but I don't have a website. I'm not on Instagram, and all I do is work off of referrals, and it actually could work for you, right?
Yep.
But the content creator, photographer, filmmaker person kind of sits in this weird spot on the list of people who are in social media.
Yep.
You have the people who use it. At the top of the list, you have influencers, and the content creator sits in the middle of the spectrum.
It's true.
And that's the tricky part, is it's like, are you marketing a lifestyle of being a photographer, or are you a user who's creating content that's actually doing the craft? And you don't know how to behave in that. Has the social media part ever factored into conversations around trajectory for you, or is it
not really?
no?
Barely,
Interesting.
not at all.
Not at all. So you haven't
Yeah.
even used it as like, have
I
you seen
mean,
my work, or is it like,
I use it as like, you know, more of a reference for like people. I'm like, if you want to see my work, here's my Instagram. Like, I don't really like push it too much. But yeah, I like to keep it like pretty basic for the most part. Like usually, a lot of people like hire me through like just word of mouth, honestly.
yeah,
And like Daniel, for example, he like asked me, he's like, how do you get all these shoots all the time? And I'm like, it's just word of mouth, I guess. Like sometimes I'll like post in like Facebook or something like that, like in like the small community group. I'll be like, hey, like I'm a photographer, local photographer, like I do these kind of shoots, like I do weddings, I do portrait photography, maternity, like all kinds. And like usually there's somebody in that group that will, all you need is like one person from that group be like, yeah, I'll give it a shot, like I'll hire you. And then if they really like your photos, then sometimes they'll post it in the group too, and they're like, oh, look at these amazing photos that so and so did, like if you ever need like a photographer, like I recommend him. Like all you need is that, and then it kind of just like branches out through like word of mouth. So yeah, I don't really like show off my Instagram too much. It's just there for like, you know, portfolio a little bit, but
yeah.
I don't really push it, you know.
So even there's like two questions I kind of like shot through on that, but I guess going back on like it's not a real job kind of like tangent is like,
Yeah.
has it what do you think the biggest barrier is conceptually for someone to not think it's a real job? Maybe related to your situation or not. I'm kind of curious your thoughts on this and like why people think that.
Well, probably from my dad's perspective, he's more of like, you know, a little bit old fashioned, I guess, to the point where he's like, you know, you're not really making money unless you're actually working hard, like physically. And I think that's what a lot of people think. And like creative work, it does get like daunting and it gets hard. And like, you know, you're up late all the time. You're always working. I don't think like, for example, like my dad, I don't think he truly sees how much work we put into it. Where like, you know, he works like overtime, for example, at like he's a millwright. So like, you know, he's always telling me like, yeah, you should get into like my work and be a millwright. And I'm like, it's not what I want to do. Like, simple as that. And I just don't think he truly understands the creative space. Yeah. Like, for example, like literally a week ago, he's like, oh, like you should apply to this place. I met a guy and he's like, he'll hire you on the spot or whatever. And I like looked into the company and they're like, it's like a tech company. He's like, yeah, I think this would be a good job for you. And I'm like, no, I'm like, I'm in the creative, like I'm not really into like tech or like sales or anything like that. He's like, well, you're good with computers and shit. And I'm like, you don't get it. So like, it's just like, there's no explaining to him. So it's just kind of like, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you, I always thought it was like a bit of a money thing.
Yeah.
You know?
That too. Yep.
But even if you pass certain thresholds, I'm going to say, of like what conventional, like let's say you were working a full-time job. Like I'm making more now than I did when I worked a full-time position. But it's even like, it's crazy because it's like, even if I'm waking up at 5 to drive 2 hours to a shoot for 8 hours, drive back to go to a shoot at night, and then, you know, like, but it's viewed as fun, even though, even though
it's so
like,
true. Yeah.
it's like, what?
Yeah.
And it's like, and I'm surpassing the level of success that I had previously, and you're like, but this is easier somehow than like doing the 9 p.m. in the office in Toronto. To like, it's so like, it's this like cultural mental block in a way, I find.
Yeah. I mean, it's content creation is easier in a sense is because we're passionate about it, right? Where like in a regular 9 to 5 job, it's a lot harder because, you know, you're not enjoying your time while you're there. Like it's exhausting. Yeah, content creation is just comes so natural to me where I love doing it. And like every minute it's non-exhausting to a point, but like when you're like behind the computer at like 6 o'clock in the morning and you're like editing, you're like, all right, I can't feel the back of my eyes. Like, but no, like, it's something we're all passionate about. And, you know, if you're truly passionate about something, like, you're going to love doing it. And, like, no matter how much time you put into it, you know.
Do you, so I guess correct me if I'm wrong, weddings in a certain sense is a bit transactional for you.
Yeah. Weddings is actually how I make most of my money. But also doing a lot of brand work as well. Brand work, I prefer doing brand work over like weddings, believe it or not. A lot of people love doing weddings. Brand work, you get to like, depending on like the brand, you get to like incorporate your own creativity into it. So like, you know, like for movement, like the watches, like hiking watch, if you're doing like a hiking watch, like go out in the outdoors. I love the outdoors. So like you kind of get to incorporate, you know, two of your favorite things, content creating, outdoors, boom, you put them together and it's just like, how could it be any better than that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So then, I guess what would be the difference, the act of content creation for you, like even in a wedding scenario, is still more fun than current at GM or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Honestly, anything is better than that place. So like being here is better than that place. Being nervous in an interview or a podcast, like better, way better. Honestly, like, yeah, you can't go wrong with that. Like content creation, like full time. I'm also going to be probably making the jump this summer where
Let's
I'm gonna
go.
be quitting there. So that's one thing I'm kind of like nervous about, but like really, really excited for. I know a lot of people get like very scared and like, even when you like mention the jump, a lot of people are like, oh, congratulations, like you're going to do the jump, good for you. Like, but they're also like, I ran into some people that are like scared about it. They're like, oh, be careful, like you shouldn't do the jump, right? And I'm like, why not? Like, look at you, you're here, like what are you passionate about? And they'll be like, oh, like I want to, like say they want to be like work as a nurse or something like that, and they're working in a factory. I'm like, okay, so why don't you just go do that instead? It's because they're like so comfortable in like one spot. And I think that's why I've been at GM for so long, is because, you know, it's comfortable. You get, you know, 40 hours a week, 40 plus hours a week. And you just constantly get a paycheck. But now I'm at the point where I'm making enough money doing content creation where it is very possible to like quit my full-time job and pursue this full-time. So like to anybody out there that is very passionate about something, I highly suggest you should, you know, seriously consider it and stop being like so scared to like make the jump. Like, what do you got to lose? Like, honestly, right?
Is that kind of the thing that you keep, or what do you think is the thing that really keeps someone in the comfort zone or in their comfort zone?
Probably the steadiness of a paycheck,
the predictability of the lifestyle.
yeah. And I feel like a lot of people in today's world, like they're scared to fail at something, where I'm like, failing is a good thing because, you know, at least you're making progress, right? That's the one thing I used to be scared of, like failing at things, but I'm like, it's good. You're making progress. You're taking those steps that you need to take in order to like be successful. Like you're not gonna, you know, try to do a triple backflip off of a cliff and land it on your first try. Like it's rare, but like, you know, it's obviously gonna take practice before you can actually like land something like that. So I'm like, you just gotta take that and apply it into your daily life. Take risks, do the jump, you know.
But you would never classify yourself as like always a risk taker.
Not really. Like I've done it like a handful of times. I wouldn't do anything like too crazy, but like, you know, like that jump that I took to Hawaii, like that was kind of a risk because we're talking about a good chunk of money that I was gonna possibly end up throwing away, right? There was that. I've taken life-threatening risks as well, like climbing some crazy mountains and like high winds where like I've been told that a lot of people have been like swooped away by the winds and like flown down the mountain. I've done risks like that, but you know, it's more about the more about the mental risks than anything. Like you gotta really pursue your passion.
Mm. So then when you're looking at your brand and commercial work,
Mm-hmm.
even when you're delivering for a client, like, because I think brand, so I guess like dialing it back, you said that some people really like weddings, some people really don't like commercial. And it's because it almost feels like you're taking the passion out of the day in a way. Like, oh, we're going to hand you leather gloves and you need to shoot it on this model. And here's the 16 shots on the full, shot list that you're going to need to capture it exactly this way. And I don't know if to what extent, you got the art director breathing over your shoulder, telling you how to take the shot. And eventually in a commercial setting, you might feel a little bit like I'm just holding the camera and everybody's telling me what to do.
Yeah. Honestly, like I don't really like working too much with like a whole crew or a group. I
Okay.
like to be my own boss in a sense. I like to put in my own creative ability into things. I've had multiple times to work on like sets and everything with like, directors and all that. It's not really my thing. I like putting in my own creative ability because then it just makes it yours, right? Where like a bunch of people working on the same thing, you can say, hey, yeah, I worked on that, but it's not yours. Like it was a whole team effort. It's good to work in teams, but like I love working with a team, but not when it comes to like a huge project. Like I like working with small teams, like 1, 2, 3 people tops. Like that way you can all kind of put a little bit of creative ability into it and you can kind of call it your own. But like when you have like 10 or 20 people like working on set, it's kind of just like, yeah, I just worked on that.
Yeah.
That's it,
So what do you think then your niche is? Like what's your, maybe currently what's your specialty, and what's the specialty you're kind of moving towards?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I don't really have like a specific niche because I'm pretty like widespread when it comes to like, pretty much anything. I like to advertise myself as like I can do anything. Like I can't really narrow it down, but if I were to narrow it down, I would probably say like travel content creator. I just like capturing like landscapes with subjects in them. And usually like trying to tell a story. Like that's the one thing I'm trying to like lean towards more this year is I want to start telling more stories to people because like a picture only like it only shows so much and it only tells so much, right? And I want to start getting into the more behind the scenes and raw moments of like vlogs and everything because like truly that's what people care about because like you can always edit like a cool video and make it epic, right? And people are like, oh, that's so cool that you get to do all that. But I also want to make it so like people can kind of like fall in love with like the video, right? And like, I think that's why vlogs like hold a special like little part because you get to see like the raw moments of like that person. Because I feel like as me like on social media, like I'm not very present as a person. I'm just like post something there, but I don't really show my face too much, and I don't really talk to like the people who follow me. And I think that's like one of the things I really want to tackle this year
is getting more active on social.
Yeah.
And that's to share your own more candid moments? Or?
Yeah. Like I just want to show people that I'm like human and not just like, just like a content creator. Like, like I have like a video on my Instagram of like my brother just being funny and stuff. Like it's kind of like we're getting like way off topic here, but like people like seeing like the behind the scenes of like, it's kind of like, for example, like if you're a celebrity and stuff, like, okay, we've seen you in like movies and everything, but we also want to see you like, when you're with your friends. I want to know what kind of person you really are. And like, I think that's the one thing that us as like content creators should like show, because then it gives them more of a connection with like the viewers, right? So yeah, that's definitely one of the things I really need to show this year, and I'm trying to like work on like that's why I'm here on this like podcast with you. Like I'm nervous as hell, but like but I'm making it work, right? Yeah.
But that goes back to like what I was saying with like the content creator kind of sits in the middle.
Yeah.
Because the weird thing about us is that people don't follow us for us. They follow us for the art.
Yeah.
And then there happens to be a person behind the art.
Yeah.
And it's like, the cool thing though is, you know, like a page like Art of Visuals or Beautiful Destinations, or like, you know, those bigger pages, is they're taking the best of what content creators do and curating it. The challenge for the content creator is creating work that competes with that, because you're, at the end of the day, everybody's fighting for screen real estate on social.
Yeah.
The leverage that those pages don't have, and that you would, if by incorporating yourself, is the fact that the investment for the art comes with the person, right? And it's like, are you imagining, I hate using the word monetization,
Yeah.
but are you seeking that kind of like, let's just say 20% income goal? Is this something that like you're thinking you can support yourself, or is it more of like, no, I just want to express myself and be in a community and like
on social media, right? Monetization.
And I don't want to make it seem like an A or B choice.
Yeah.
I think they can live together, but
yeah, I'm not really too big on it. Like, I don't really care about the monetization. It's kind of just a place to show like my portfolio. I don't know. Like, the way I want to get revenue is by like working with like people, working with brands. Like, that's the only source of like income I have. I do like website management too, so I have like some like passive income coming in. But yeah, I'm not really big on the whole monetization on social media platforms. Like, it's kind of, I never really looked into it. That's the thing, and that's why it probably doesn't really show too much of an interest. What about you? Have you like, are you into that, or like
monetization on social?
Yeah.
I never started like, I obviously grew, like the Brock Wonder page grew to the 102,000 that it is right now. And I always parked monetizing it because I always felt like it cheapened what I was sharing on it.
Okay.
And I always was like, if I ask them to buy my presets, they all of a sudden think I'm taking street photos to get money from them. And I was like, that isn't what I'm trying to do with this. And similar to like what you were saying, like I always used the page as a proof of concept. And so it was like, hey, brand X or agency Y, like I can help you make content and grow your social media because look at me, I did both, right? Yeah. And then that was how I kind of opened a door up for exactly work offline that I never shared with my audience online. Like, as far as I'm concerned, like anybody following me would think that like all I did was shoot street, right? Like it was like, this guy must just be downtown every day shooting photos. And they had no idea I was, you know, one day I was shooting a shoe company in a studio, and the next day was car care brands, or you know, or doing an interview, or it was totally like, sometimes I put on my story, but lately it's become more attractive from the standpoint that I heard a different creator go, well, I'm doing all of this work to be able to do this work, and the audience in a certain way is deriving some sort of value by following you. And I never wrap my head around the idea of like Patreon or like donations or that like support me, but I almost feel like the pursuit of monetization on social actually strengthens the community feel of it, because it more crisply solidifies what you're trying to build, because you have to put a revenue stream behind it. And all of a sudden you then bring people together trying to accomplish something. And I use a guy like Optical Wander as an example. Samuel Bassett, I think his actual name is. I don't know if you know who he is.
No, I don't think so.
He's a UK street photographer. And this dude is like, in the pandemic, I forget what he did before the pandemic, but in the pandemic, he basically was just shooting a YouTube video every day, walking around London with a GoPro on his chest doing street. Grew the YouTube channel, grew his Instagram, and I don't know what his actual financial situation is, but I think he's doing quite well for himself as a result of this like case of doing street photography.
Yeah.
And as far as niches go on social, street photography is probably the lowest paying niche possible because a client looks at it and goes, well, you can't do what I need you to do, right? There's no products in it. There's no weddings in it. Like there's no clear map to product. And there's also no brand integration capabilities because you're not in the street photography. So you've dramatically limited your road to it. But what he is doing is inspiring people to pursue a life that they want to live on their own terms. And his whole thing is, go, if you want to move to Australia and live in Sydney, go, right? And I'm doing that by doing street photography. I love street photography. The internet's this amazing thing. Like we can do what we want. You know, I don't know if he's asked for donations, but he could definitely be like, listen, like help me make art for you, right?
Yeah.
Like let's grow together and do that. So I have like a bit of a mixed view on it, and I do sell products now, and I started selling my presets in November of 2022, and that was 4 years into it, and everybody was asking for my presets at one point because it was like I was the thing that people don't understand about presets though is the presets are all designed for lighting conditions. And until you buy, like somebody in Miami is doing these crazy edits and you're like, oh, let me get those presets. And then you shoot in Toronto in this in bright daylight and they don't work. And you're like, presets don't work. And you're like, well.
I have some presets. I've been thinking about selling some of mine, but I'm like kind of on the fence about it because like I feel like it won't match with like when people download them because I have like this one preset. I swear, like it only works at one location where it's like a perfect preset for that location. It's like, it's in like a forest and just the way the light comes in only in this forest. It's so weird. It doesn't work on anything else. It just matches like so perfectly. But then if I were to use that preset on any other photo, the whole thing will go purple.
There you go.
Like, I'm like, I don't feel confident selling this because people are going to freaking like lose it. Like, you know, so.
Well, it's wild too, because so they will lose it and they buy it and they're like, you're a fraud. And that's what I was afraid of. Right.
Yeah.
I made a PDF in mine to like explain, listen, these are made for Toronto in specific weather conditions. And I even labeled the preset for the weather condition. Like I'm just like Toronto in the rain, Toronto at sunset, Toronto, like, because I would go to Banff and, you know,
totally different.
Oh my God, it was a disaster. I'm like, I can't use this. I look like Sam Kohler in 2012, like orange and blue. Like, no, it's not a thing. But there are ways around it to do it tastefully. Like you can do, the ones that I found that are really valuable are like almost like ingredient lists. And it's like add blue in the highlights. And that's, so like you know, you pick the base set and then you add the tones accordingly. And it gets you close. It's inevitably though, it doesn't work.
Yeah. But it also helps like the people that are like downloading your presets to like, you know, have some like fine tweaks to it and like know that you're like putting in a good amount of time into your presets to make them work with like the conditions that they're working with. That's one thing I haven't done yet. Yeah. I usually just drop one of my presets on and then I just play with all my presets. Like I did a coffee shop shoot about a week ago and I never shoot indoors, like almost never. It's usually always outdoor. None of my presets worked on it, but I found one that kind of like I threw on. I'm like, okay, let's see. And then I started playing around with everything. I spent probably about 25 minutes and I actually got a look that I like really liked. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to develop this one, save this one. So like named a coffee shop or something like that.
Nice.
Like, so, yeah, I'm starting to play around with like, you know, my presets a little bit more. That way I have more diversity. So when I do release some, people have a lot more to like play with. So
cool.
Yeah.
How long does it take you to edit a photo start to finish usually?
It depends. Usually, believe it or not, I barely edit like anything like on my photos. Like if somebody, I never do like face retouching on anybody. Like I just like having the natural look to people. So to answer your question, probably like, depending on the photo, maybe like 2-3 minutes sometimes.
Really?
Yeah, I don't really like to put too much crazy editing into like my shots. I like them as natural as possible.
Wild.
Yeah, with my preset on top. But yeah,
so I just feel like a fool right now.
That's why I take my photos. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna perfectly like have this is exactly how I want the composition. So I'm like Like I barely want to edit it. Like sometimes I'll crop and stuff. Yeah, the two major things is like crop and just a preset usually on my photos.
So then,
What about you? You just zoom in like all the way and you're like, yeah, that's such...
if I do a portrait shoot, I will take like I will set aside a week to make that set.
Wow.
Yeah, like I will like put it in Photoshop, smooth the skin, bring out the blushing, and like blend the red with the like and melt the skin tones together and like fix the ring. Like I will like sit on it.
Yeah.
Like, and by the time I'm done, I'm just like I gotta keep going. Like I'm just
like sometimes I'll go into that, but it's like very, very rare. Like I'll do like the spot heal on certain things. Sometimes brighten up the eyes. But that's only for like photos I'm like, okay, I really love this shot and I'm gonna go a little bit more into it. But that's literally the only time that I'll actually end up going all in on a photo. Yeah.
That's okay though, because with street photography, like I mean, street photography is in an interesting spot right now because with video being as prominent as it's become, I think street photography is like a gateway into content creation is actually like very dialed back. Like if my guess is if you looked at 2015 and how many people were entering photography and starting with street photography, it would be like 80% of people. Let's just make it up. Like now it's probably like, oh, I want to be a content creator. Like 10% are like, I'm going to do street photography to do that, right?
Yeah.
It's probably something fitness related or foodie related or something like that. But when there was that strong culture of street photography, it was a lot more prevalent to see the sides of editing that can exist in photography, and that like choosiness of like the natural environment versus editing your street photos. Like some street photographers edited garbage off of the street to like polish up the photo or like knock out. Like I took the perspective when it's a street photo, that is a street photo. That is the moment in time. You there's no reason to change this, right? So it really depends on, to your point, like the task at hand.
Yeah.
And then so obviously like you have your presets because you put them in like familiar conditions, let's say, that like, you know.
Yeah.
How many hours does it take to develop a preset? Also quick?
You mean how many years?
How many years? That's it. No, yeah. But this is what I'm trying to like
I wouldn't measure it on like hours. I would say like it's taken me a few years to like actually like here and there, like couple hours here, couple hours there, like to actually get it where I want. Like I think I've finally found my style basically. Like I remember when I first started actually making presets like 4 or 5 years ago, and I thought they're good at the time, and I'm like, it's so funny. You look back at your old presets, you're like, what was I thinking? Like this is terrible garbage. Like there's blues up here, there's oranges, there's pinks, like it's just all over the place. No, so like answer that question, like years, like but if you're talking like building a preset from like scratch in today, like I would probably say maybe like 4 or 5 hours sometimes. Yeah. Just fine tweaking. Yeah.
I think the biggest barrier when you're first starting out is like, why does my photo not look like this yet? You know, and you're like looking at it and you're just frustrated, and you're like, you like shot the photo at 1 p.m. and you're like, my sky's blue, my trees are green, like this isn't making sense. And it's just like the amount of iteration that needs to come through to like bring your style out. Not only is it editing specific, but it's your lifestyle specific on when you like to shoot. Like all these things come together that you don't actually realize come through in the presets themselves. So I guess my curiosity is like, have you figured out then your creative process? You say you just found your style. Like, is that really a recent discovery? Is that editing related, or is that also in how you shoot and when you shoot?
It's more on a like color grading standpoint. Like it's not like to do with the scene itself. Yeah, for a while I just couldn't get my colors exactly how I wanted them, and I was just like, yeah, it's good, but like it's not, I don't love it, you know. And just recently I started like developing presets that I truly like fell in love with, and I'm like, you know what? I think these are the like 3 presets that I'm going to be sticking with for like a long time, where it actually looks like a clean photo and a clean shot. But finding my style with video, different story. Like I'm trying so hard to like color grade like properly. Like that's the one thing I'm struggling with the most is color grading. But I think I'm starting to like pick it up now. It's definitely tough, especially when you're like, I don't know why, but like everyone always says film and log all the time, and I do, but it's so hard to expose properly in log that, you know, I feel like it's too much of a range for me to like color grade properly, and I'm just still trying to like learn it and understand how to like color grade properly in log. It's weird because I like with a normal picture profile, I feel like it's a little bit easier for me to like with my like I guess LUTs that I've made to it works with the footage. So I've kind of been like sticking with that for the most part.
Well, especially if you like the natural look.
Yeah,
Like
I
if
do.
that's then
Yeah.
realistically, you shoot in 10-bit 422 footage, right? Like you're not gonna have an issue stretching that even if you have a base grade applied in camera
Yeah.
to keep that more natural tone.
Yeah. And I know that Sony's are pretty good with the color profile in the cameras. So
Now, yes.
yeah, they're really nice. I like
I looked at a Sony A7 III recently and got some photos from one, and it the portrait photo, I don't want to bash it, but like I'm gonna bash it a bit, but like the purples and pinks and people's cheeks and stuff that like oh my god, what a nightmare.
Yeah.
I'm like, this isn't even like,
I've noticed that, yeah.
but now I don't, it depends. The newer ones, like they fixed it as far as I'm concerned. They really did. So my one thing that I always struggled with is like knowing what I want in my edits, and even in the preset itself, because like going back to street photography, one thing about Toronto is that it's very gray, and the streets are very far apart, and so the streets tend to be filled with a lot of light, and so that's where the color's lost. So the way I apply edits is to like induce more color and tend to bring warmth to the image, even though they're very moody. But that's just Toronto in sunset. But I would do reference checks on like, oh, this is an inspiration for me. Like this is, like what do I like of these creators as types of creative? Did you have inspiration as you developed your preset, or have you always been just introspective enough that like you can iterate on itself and know what you like?
Kind of just off of myself, because I look at other people's work and I'm like, oh, I love it. Like I wish I could do that, but I'm like, that's not what I want to do. I want to be my own. I want to have my own play on it. So, that's actually one thing I wanted to talk about today is like, I kind of like, I like seeing everyone's work, but I don't like to copy anybody. And I like to, a lot of people, like they get inspired off of other people's stuff. I kind of don't in a way. Like I find it like really cool. I love seeing other people's work. It doesn't inspire me to a certain extent, but it doesn't inspire me to the point where I'm just like, yeah, I want to create exactly what you just did. Like I like having my own like creative touch on everything. And I know like, like so many people have their own color style to their photos. Like, for example, if I'm like scrolling through Instagram and I see you, I won't even see your username. I'll be like, yep, I know who that is. I know whose Dan's photos are just by their colors and their color grading. And that's what makes people like unique when it comes to like, having their specific style, right?
Yeah. Would you have any advice for somebody to figure it out?
Just keep playing around, honestly. Yeah, just play with colors. Exposure settings probably, like
learn it, right?
Just learning, playing around with it.
How often do you shoot to practice? Like do you have like one day a week where you're like, this is my play day, I'm gonna go shoot in the morning, come back, edit, and just try new things and then apply that to clients? Or
surprisingly, I don't really have time for that anymore. It's more like I get a job, I go out and I shoot it, because other than that I'm working like technically 2 jobs, so I don't really have time. Like when I first started photography, I did that all the time. I'd go out and just shoot just for fun and just like learn. So now it's more like I'm working and learning at the same time. So
yeah, hey, that's okay.
Yeah,
that's the process.
Yeah, as you get older, you don't really have time to just go out and just have fun and just experiment, I feel.
Yeah. the ideation then for a shoot, like what do you use to fuel like the creative side of you if you're not playing?
That's a good question. The thing that fuels me is just straight passion, and that's it. Like, I don't know how to go in depth with this one.
Like, do you know where you get your ideas from, or do they just like
Literally when I'm like laying in bed staring at the ceiling, yeah, and then your mind's like going crazy. Like that's usually when I get my best ideas. And then like I'll like wake up in the middle of the night and like, okay, I forgot the idea already. Like, okay, think, and then I have to write it down. Like if I don't write it down, then I'll forget about it either in my phone or in my notepad. But yeah, usually like late at night. And when I say late at night, I mean early in the morning, but I haven't slept yet. So yeah, probably like usually like 2 or between 2 and 4 in the morning is when I get like the most creative and most inspired, I guess.
Are you a night owl?
Yeah, insanely. like
straight up.
Yeah, I'm insanely a night owl.
Your whole life, or was that a recent discovery?
Probably the last 4 years, maybe. Yeah, just sometimes I won't even sleep.
Wild.
Yeah,
I love you can push it, or
kinda.
Yeah. Do you find that helps you like with traveling at all, or because I know some people are like,
honestly, like it's weird when I travel. Yeah, I can go one of two ways. Like sometimes, like my recent travel when I went to Alberta, I felt like I was a grandpa because I'm so tired. Like all this physical activity, like all I want to do is sleep. But it's usually go. But I feel like when I travel with my friends, like I'm a little bit more sleepier. But like when I travel by myself, I'm like go. I don't want to stop because like, you know, you feel like you're gonna miss out on something, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
How often? So were you actually restricted? How restricted were you with travel during COVID?
I ended up getting like both of my shots, so I wasn't really restricted. I just had to pay a shit ton of money for like the COVID test for like flying out, flying back in.
So you just were like, I'm doing this no matter what. Like,
yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. I was like, I went to Italy, went to Hawaii. Hawaii during COVID was hell. It was a nightmare. I remember like, you needed a special like seal of approval to be accepted into Hawaii. And the only way to get this is you had to go to a certain, approved, place to get your like, COVID test done. And it had to be approved by the state of Hawaii. So here I am with no seal of approval. I fly out in the morning. I have like 5 hours to like go. And I'm like calling the state of Hawaii, like trying to make sure I'm like, it was crazy. And then they're like, yeah, you won't be able to enter the state if you don't have that seal. I'm like, how do I get it? They're like, yeah, we don't know. I'm like, how do you not know?
Yeah, like you made this.
So anyways, I'm like, then I made a phone call to like the people that did the testing or whatever. And they're like, yeah, we know nothing about this seal of approval or whatever. And I'm like, what? It says like, you should, like, it says you guys are approved by the state of Hawaii. And then they're like, yeah, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Long story short, I called them back again. I'm like, can I get somebody else? And then I got this other lady and she's like, oh yeah, like I'll email it to you right away. And I'm like, thank God, like here I am thinking I'm not going to be able to travel to Hawaii during COVID. And no, we made it work. And talk about stressful.
Yeah,
that
kidding.
That was really stressful. And it was funny because when I was at the airport, flew from Toronto to San Francisco. We're in San Francisco waiting to board to go to Hawaii. And you wouldn't imagine how many people there were that didn't have this seal. So they refused, they couldn't board them. I'm like, oh man, that sucks. That could have been us. Imagine just being stuck there, not going to your destination that you want to go to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't let COVID stop me. At the beginning, obviously, because like, yeah,
The whole world shut down.
Yeah.
So how often are you flying out then? Like if you had to average it out?
Not as much as people think.
Okay.
Like people are like, oh, you're always traveling. I'm like,
that's what it looks like.
I'm really not. Like,
Yeah.
And then people always asking, how can you afford to travel? I'm like, well, I don't go out on the weekends. I stay home. Like, yeah. People always go to the bars. Yeah. They're like, I want to travel like you. But no. What was your question again? Sorry.
Like how many places have you been to?
Not that many. I've been to like Hawaii. I've been to Mexico, Vegas, Italy, Alberta.
We're starting the rounds.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah, there's so many places I still want to go to. Like Portugal, one of them. Africa is a big one. Iceland, New Zealand.
You haven't been to Iceland yet?
No,
You're gonna love Iceland.
I know. I don't know when the best time is to go. Like in the summer, probably
August.
August. Yeah.
August. Right now is puffins.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want puffins, you go now. But for best like conditions, beautiful like Iceland, it's August for sure, for sure. But like you can send it now, and you probably get close to what you get in August. It's just like, yeah, plus the puffins. The puffins
plus
are
the
like,
puffins.
yeah.
That's what we go for.
That's what I go for. I went to Scotland and I'm like, I want to see puffins, and then there was like some bird flu floating around the puffin colonies, and they shut down tours completely. And I'm like, okay, like,
Oh man,
I can't do anything about that. Yeah,
that sucks.
that does suck. But so when you're looking for destinations to go to, then especially with your creative style, looking for candid moments, what's the thing you're searching for with like where you want to go to?
Uniqueness, probably. Like one of the trips I want to really do this summer is Africa, and just getting to see the wildlife. I would love to see that. Out of all the times I've traveled, I haven't seen any really any wildlife. Like I've been to Alberta, you see some goats and like some whatever, right? I haven't seen a moose, I haven't seen a bear.
Really?
And I'm deliberately looking for them and I can't find them. Like it's crazy. So yeah, definitely Africa would be probably really cool because of the uniqueness and like getting to see like, safari and everything. Yeah, just diverse, just the terrain. Those are what I go for. I want to see different every time I travel. So like I've already seen tropical stuff. I've already seen like mountain ranges in Alberta and such. But I think it's time for like, dry kind of like safari, wildlife kind of like vibe.
Let's go.
Vibe.
Yeah. No, it's true.
Yeah.
I saw a reel recently from Namibia.
Yeah.
And it just had like elephants and giraffes and rhinos, and I just like every time I see a reel that like is so foreign to me, it's like I'm just like, what am I missing?
Yeah, you get like this like chill through your body. You're like, oh, like I wanna I wanna I wanna experience this with my own eyes. Like
Yeah. So I guess I want to I think I'm getting your energy with this, and I think for me it's like refreshing because you're almost like you've been doing this for a while now, but your motivation is like really, I think, increasing year by year the longer you're getting after it. If you had a piece of advice for sort of somebody that maybe for you 8 years ago or 10 years ago, that's like, I kind of think I might like this photography, videography thing, content creation kind of pathway. What's the thing that you think they should focus on to like keep them grounded on pursuing it? So that like on the days where you're like, oh, there's self-doubt in my ability to make this video, or people are telling me this career path doesn't make sense. Like,
I would say don't listen to what anybody else thinks about it, whether it's like, especially if it's bad. Like, just got to stay focused on what you want and what you want to do. Don't be afraid to take risks, make the jump. But yeah, I feel like in today's world, like a lot of people, like they get jealous. So they kind of like try to bring you down with them. So just don't let other people stop you from doing what you want.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. I think if there's anywhere to like simmer the conversation or like land the plane or like have that as like the parting message for the listener, I want to say like that's it for me with you, because
Perfect.
Like I'd love to have you back and be like, in a year, listen, July I actually made the jump, went to Vancouver, did a spec shoot, landed 3 clients, like just like
I hope
shot the goals.
Yeah, I'm really hoping so. Like, and hopefully next time I'm here, I'll have like a little bit more to talk about, because like,
dude, are you kidding me?
Man.
It was like like this is great. What are you saying?
I don't know, just a little nervous,
No, that's all good. For first pod, I think like this is great, honestly.
Yeah, this is the first time being interviewed, so like, it's kind of nice.
I guess before we go, if you want to let the people know where they can find you, see your work, check out what you can do, maybe if they want to drop you a call and have a discovery for some videos.
Do you want me to look at the camera?
Yeah, you go for it. You can look at the camera, you can look at me, you can...
No, you guys can find me at Brandon.Donadel. It's on my Instagram. I have a website. It's BrandonDonadel.com. Pretty much it.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see you then in a year.
Yeah, sounds good, man. Thank you for having me.
Dude, killer.